Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Rainmaker's Roundup. I am your host, Mark Iorio. I am with Dr. Laura Sicola. Laura is the founder of Vocal Productions.
Vocal Impact Productions.
Vocal Impact Productions.
Great.
Welcome.
Thank
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thrilled to be here.
Great. It's good to have you.
Thank you
good
for
to have
having
you.
me.
You're welcome. A little bit of a ride this morning, right? You came from outside of Newtown Square, but
Down near Media, yep.
down near Media.
Sure.
It was very good. Okay. We talked before we went on the air about words matter, and you have taken this to a whole different level.
Sure.
I'd like you to explain that. I watched your TED Talk. We've talked a number of times. What you're doing and how you help people is fascinating to me, and I love the fact that you're here.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, words, of course, do matter. You have to choose your words accurately, diplomatically, the right amount of detail, not too much, not too little. But it's not enough just to focus on the words themselves. You really have to focus on how they're delivered, because that's going to change how they land, the impact that they have, and the results that you get. So, you know, for me to just say, oh, by the way, I really like your tie. It's, you look very nice today. It's like, what? So who cares?
Right. A little monotone.
Right. It's like, but when I deliver it like that, you're asking yourself, does she really mean it, or is it just sort of a perfunctory lip service, or is she even really aware of what she's saying? Does she just need more coffee?
Yeah,
so the way you deliver the words makes all the difference. But when you think about how people typically prepare for a meeting or something, what do? They prep their spreadsheets, they prep their deck, their slides, their brochures, all the material. They don't think about how it's going to sound when it comes out. Most people just wing the delivery. They fly by the seat of their pants and the results show it.
Absolutely. I think I was talking to you about this last night or yesterday. You know, it's interesting when you take a video of someone or you listen to someone on audio and how you feel about the way you're coming across to someone.
Right.
And you look at that. I think I was telling you that my friend took a video of me playing golf or swinging a golf club. You don't realize what you're doing, and you don't realize that you're making these critical mistakes.
Yeah.
So how does Vocal Impact Productions help people, Laura? What is the process that you go about in helping people understand how to become better at communicating?
You referenced a really important point, which is what I like to refer to as the blind spot. Just like every car has a blind spot, we have blind spots in our communication. You think you know how you come across when you speak. You know how you want to come across when you speak. What you don't know is how you actually come across. To your point with the golf swing, you studied, you have your lessons, you studied the books, you know what all the mechanics are supposed to be. You know what you think you're doing. Of course, wherever the ball goes is going to be some feedback,
yeah, sure,
but that beyond that, then you see yourself on video and you go, oh my gosh, what was I doing with my shoulders, or why did I keep shifting my feet, etc. So we don't often know how we really come across, and that's where the basis of my work comes in, is that I want to know, how do you want to come across to people and why? Who's your audience? What do they need to see? What do they need to hear from you to really buy into what you're saying, regardless of how good your numbers look on paper? Because they have to buy into you before they buy into your product or service.
Yeah.
That's critical. And so the use of video is a great tool, because we'll do a little bit of simple recording just to see what your normal conversation, your normal presentation is like. And when you realize where that gap is between how you think it looked when you were making it and how you actually looked when you see the end result, then we identify where you're getting in your own way from having the results that you want, and we can start to close that gap.
You know, it's really interesting too, because you know, the immediate thought is, well, this would be perfect for people in business development or sales or whatever. Anytime you make a persuasive argument or discussion with anyone, you could be in college doing a debate, you can be making a presentation You can be asking your boss for a raise, right? There's a whole litany of things that you would be helpful to someone,
Yes.
right?
Sure.
So talk about that a little bit, please.
This is relevant to anybody who just is not hearing the word yes enough.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. It doesn't matter whether it's the conversation at home with your significant other, with your kids, or with your boss, your clients, your prospects. If you don't feel like you're getting the results that you want, that you're not hearing yes enough, that there's hemming and hawing, there's a lot of hesitation, they're just not clicking with you, then it's most likely a big piece of that challenge is because of your delivery.
What do you see a lot of times? What are some of the subtle flaws that you see in the way people deliver a speech or they deliver a presentation? What are some of the things that you witness that you can help people with?
In that kind of more professional context, people's their focus is wrong when they start. Their goal ends up being, I need to, let's see, I've got an hour to make this presentation, so I have to get all this information in that time, make sure I've said everything I want to say, and that I finish. And it's not a race. It's not about, well, as long as I finish all 27 slides in the deck by the time the hour's up, I win.
Right.
Who cares how much you get through if they don't actually process what you're saying, if it's not resonating with them? You need to make sure that they're with you on that journey. You're not just running the race by yourself. So thinking about, how am I going to start with each of these pieces? And if I were in their seat, what would I want to hear?
Right.
What would make it relevant
Right.
to me?
Yeah.
And who would make it relevant to me?
Yeah.
I'm not saying you need to act like somebody else, but if you know that this particular client is someone who's very sort of thoughtful, a little on the quieter side, needs time to process, is a little skeptical, then you're not going to approach them, or you shouldn't approach them the same way where if you are talking to somebody who's a real high energy person and who just wants to get things done, all about move, you want to have a little more energy when you're to reflect to that person. So even if you are a quieter type of an individual, dig deep, pull out your higher level, the part of you that will shine like that, because it'll be a bit more relatable to that person. And relatability is one of the critical aspects of effective sales.
Yeah, speaking of that, I think I mentioned to you earlier today that I was watching an interview, no names, this morning, and the host was interviewing two entrepreneurs who were talking about their product. But in your TED Talk, when you spoke at the University of Penn, I think earlier this year, right?
It was a few years ago.
Okay. So we looked, I was looking at that, and you made a really interesting point. It was funny, but it was interesting. And that is that people, it's called uptalk, right? Explain that, and explain what people or how people react to something like that.
Sure, the reaction should probably speak for itself, but the uptalk or upspeak is that pattern that a lot of people use where they sound like they're asking questions with that rising intonation at the ends of all their phrases and sentences.
Yes.
And I'm going to stop now so I don't annoy everybody else and make them turn off the show. So we don't realize that we do that. And if you ask any room full of people, do you ever speak like that? 99% of them will say no. And about 80% of them will be wrong.
Yeah.
Most people do it at some point or other, and that includes men, whereas women tend to get the bad reputation because it sort of harkens back to that Valley Girl image of the 80s. So the millennial women in particular are very vulnerable to that stereotype, but men do it just as much, older, younger, regardless of the industry, how highly educated or professionally successful. And it's because we are on sort of mental list mode, I like to call it, where you think, all right, I got 4 points I need to make, and I want to run through them quickly before this guy cuts me off or before we run out of time or something. So I got to talk to you about this and about this and about this, and I'm just running through, even in introductions, people setting agendas. It's like I have 4 points in the agenda that I want to remind people of in the beginning. So we'll talk about this and about this. We don't realize the voice keeps doing that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound authoritative. We need to hear a period, not a question mark.
Right,
at the ends
exactly.
of sentences.
Yeah.
So if you're going through, you're trying to sell something, what do? You end up accidentally going through a list of all the features that this item has.
Yeah.
Well, it slices, it dices, it does this, it does that. We need to back off. Make a statement. Tell me what it does, but tell me why I want it. Tell me why it helps me.
You even mentioned something early on
Sure.
in your talk about how you introduce yourself
Yes.
to someone, and I just found that to be very interesting as well. You're speaking all over the world. You wrote this wonderful book, Maximize Your Leadership Influence. Command the room, connect with your audience, and close the deal. I mean, we're in business to close the deal,
Yes,
right?
we are.
We're in business to make money. I mean, it is capitalism. Rainmakers is all about it's all about how we sell and market
Sure.
our business. So, you talked about introducing yourself. That's the very first step.
Yes, it is.
So talk about that for a second.
Most people, when you think about it, they make three big mistakes when they introduce themselves, and that's why you don't remember. I mean, who's good at remembering names? Nobody. And half of the reason is because of how we introduce ourselves. So people will usually say it way too fast. Hi, I'm Laura Sicola. By the time you realize they said something, you already missed it. They blur it all together, so it sounds like it's all one word. And then
Right.
they usually ask it like it's a question. Hi, I'm Laura Sicola with Vocal Impact Productions.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you asking me or are you telling me? Well,
Yeah,
make up
right,
your mind,
exactly.
and when you figure it out, let me know, and then I'll pay attention to it. But we tend to, by blurring that all together, it just makes it go right past, I didn't catch who you are, I can't look you up later, I can't introduce you to somebody else because I'm embarrassed because I don't remember your name. It
Yeah.
has so many little negative ripple effects. So start by slowing it down, much slower than you would normally say it. You've said it a billion times in your life, right? So it's intuitive, it's easy for you, not predictable for them. So slow it down, break it up. I want to hear it's Laura Sicola, 2 words, just enough so that I
Right.
can capture exactly
Yeah.
what the elements were, and then let the first word go up and the second word go down. Laura Sicola, Mark Iorio. So
Yes.
you want to make sure that I hear, I'm not done yet, now I'm done. Finish it,
Yeah.
own it. Have that period at the end. When you say it like that, it's so much easier to hear, to process, to retain. It makes a much better first impression and beginning of a lasting relationship.
Yeah, you even have a slide on that
Yes.
to show people how to actually pronounce their
Yep.
name. As I mentioned a minute ago, you speak all over the world about this, and Vocal Impact Productions is a company that you have a lot of clients and you help a lot of people. And I was going to ask you how you find new clients. What, besides your speaking engagements, and you're renowned. I mean, you've got a book, and I'm sure you're on tour around the world. So how do you find new business?
I think there's 3 basic sources that are the primary revenue generators, so to speak. One is referrals, because once somebody's happy, they tell other people, because we all know someone else who's struggling with the same things that we're struggling with. And when we share those challenges, we're also then excited to share solutions. So referrals are terrific. My TED Talk, as you mentioned, is another one that
Yeah.
has just exploded on the internet. I never expected it to go quite as viral. I hate to use that word because it's almost cliche, but it did. All of a sudden, I was getting 10,000 hits a day at one point when it was
Wow.
first new. Yeah, so that's where we got to over 5 million views in just a couple of years, so which is terrific. I
That's
never could have
fascinating.
predicted that.
That is amazing.
So when it comes up like Simon Sinek and Laura Sicola, and you go, wow, okay, thank you, God. But so that's been a great source. And then the third one is speaking engagements. So whether I'm talking formally in front of an audience at a keynote event, or otherwise, I do a lot of pro bono events for like women's initiatives and other groups. It just gets the word out. And people, for me, I don't do well marketing in a networking event, just swapping business cards. I can't explain to somebody in 3 seconds what I do. But if they can hear me talk, if they can see me do a demo of some sort, they go, oh, yeah, that's totally what I need. She's hitting the nail on the head. She hit my pain point. And she's interesting, and she's funny, and she's showing me results. And that's what I want. I want what she's got. So if they can see me demo and say, that's what I want, then they follow through. And then I get in from there.
Yeah, and I would imagine, Laura, that you're talking to people at every single level of an organization, or even I'm sure I don't know if you do this or not, but college students. I mean, people that are just aspiring to get into the workforce. Is there anyone that is sort of exempt from your training or coaching?
If they are, I want to meet them because they're the unicorn and they've mastered the art to a degree where they've perfected it.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody, and for that matter, I want them to mentor me. But it's really I don't know anybody who isn't frustrated with their lack of success in communicating with some people at some time.
Yeah, we see it all the time, especially in political arenas.
Yeah.
You see people who get up in front of a teleprompter and they cannot articulate what they want to articulate without a teleprompter. They cannot speak extemporaneously, and it's just it's very difficult. So they really need your help. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm going to ask you about a case study, something you could share with us that has helped someone out in the marketplace.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors.
You really are. And most importantly, there's you and your interview. For less than the cost of a newspaper, direct mail, or a magazine ad, you can leave our studio and within 48 hours have a permanent digital copy of your live segment to link to your social media, embed into your company website, or use in email marketing. Investing in your brand is so very important, and we can't wait to have you as a guest.
Shelter dogs aren't broken. They've simply experienced more life. If they were human, we would call them wise. They would be the ones with tales to tell and stories to write, the ones dealt a bad hand who responded with courage. Do not pity a shelter dog. Adopt one.
Say we've got grit, and we'll take it as a compliment. Because it's our uncommon drive, our spark within, that brings us together and sets us apart. We are temple made. And when others take shortcuts, when others take breaks, when others take the easy way, we take charge.
I work 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. So when I'm off the clock, I gotta get stuff done. So when I need a snack, I need something healthy, tasty, and easy to eat. Like wonderful pistachios without the shells. They're protein-powered, delicious, and great on the go. And that's perfect for me. Thanks, Liz. A woman without a lot of time.
Whether you're a gourmet cook or just want to eat like one, visit Rostelli Market Fresh, your home for the freshest, locally sourced ingredients to please everyone who loves great food. Our organic meats, quality seafood, and free-range poultry are cut fresh to order. Chefs create culinary-inspired prep foods made fresh every day, which pair nicely with our vast selection of fine wines and spirits. Choose from handmade pastas, artisan cheeses, organic produce, and grocery items, all from the finest purveyors. Rostelli Market Fresh, from our family to yours.
RVN TV is a platform for people of any industry to share their story. Over 285,000 viewers are tuning in to RVN TV shows monthly. We guarantee a great experience that you'll be sharing with everyone you know while increasing your personal and company's brand awareness. But what is your brand? According to Forbes, it's a combination of your logo, your product, your design and feel, and your personality. Did you know that aside from being a guest, we offer even more opportunity to boost your brand? Adding your company logo and website on screen during your interview will allow viewers to recognize your brand instantly. Incorporating images and video clips is another great way to showcase your product during your live segment. Let viewers see how good you really are. And most importantly, there's you and your interview. For less than the cost of a newspaper, direct mail, or a magazine ad, you can leave our studio and within 48 hours have a permanent digital copy of your live segment to link to your social media, embed into your company website, or use in email marketing. Investing in your brand is so very important, and we can't wait to have you as a guest.
Shelter dogs aren't broken. They've simply experienced more life.
Welcome back to Rainmaker's Roundup. I am your host, Mark Iorio, and I am with Dr. Laura Sicola. Dr. Laura Sicola is the president and founder of Vocal Impact Productions, and we were just talking about, how you can coach, consult, and help people become more persuasive, right? In any walk of life. in any walk of life, whether it's politics, business, the clergy, wherever it happens to be, we are doing things on a regular basis to persuade others,
Yes.
college students. So how do you, what are some of the, I don't want you to give us tips, but what are some of the thoughts about how to become more persuasive, Laura?
A big piece of it is thinking about, if I were in that person's shoes, what part of this would matter most to me? And both in the content, what examples, what results, what consequences, what details, what benefits would be most persuasive for me to hear, because everybody's tuned into that one universal radio station, right? WIFM. What's in it for me? That's what they want to hear. You tell me that, and then I'll listen to the rest of what you're saying. But if you're just trying to tell me I'm wrong in everything, then that's not motivating for me to give you credence.
Right.
But so thinking about their interests and angling your conversation with that content in mind to start, and then also the delivery. And with one audience, are they going to be more interested in hearing somebody who's passionate, or somebody who's easygoing and hands-off and approachable, or somebody who's going to be right up in there, and with, depending on what you think they're going to need to hear to feel connected, to feel like they buy into what you're saying, you got to turn that part up and down. And most people just sort of go one note. We get stuck in what I call black and white thinking, where we put ourselves in a box. This is me, that's not me.
Right.
And as soon as you do that, you're done. Just
You're
go home.
done, right, exactly.
Go home.
Yeah, so Vocal Impact Productions is different. I mentioned this to you before. I've been running my business for over 30 years, and it's rare that someone has broken down the art, the science of presenting and becoming as persuasive as you're talking about. I know you did your doctoral studies in your educational research in this, but what makes you so different? Why are you doing this, and why do you think it has such a impact on everybody?
Don't apologize. Don't apologize at all. That's the whole point.
Yeah, exactly.
I think for me, there's a lot of people who do public speaking coaching or presentation skills. There are those who are more general executive coaches on the strategy, business decision level. And there are people who do some of this work who are coming from the theater world, but
Interesting.
for the presentation skills and the public speaking
Sure.
piece, they take a lot of skills from there, and there's lots of value to that. Some of us will get to some similar results just from different directions. But for me, I'm a linguist. So my work is really looking at how language works itself. What is the nature, how it's structured, and why? And then number two, how do we cognitively process language? What makes it stick or go in one ear and out the other, or have different effects? And then the third is looking at, from there, the various influences that we've had in our lives that create filters that make us interpret those words differently. So why, when I give you input, two different people could hear, one person will hear something very supportive and one person will hear something very critical, even when we're listening to the exact same words at the exact same time. So what is it from your background, your culture, your upbringing, your industry that makes you interpret things differently? So when you put those three things together, which is where my world is, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. So we talked about this earlier. You do a lot of speaking engagements. You get in front of a lot of corporations, I'm sure, and a lot of membership groups, right?
Sure.
Then what happens? I mean, people say, oh, I would love to have Dr. Sicola come in and coach me or consult with me. Is that the way it works?
Frequently.
Okay.
Yes.
So with that said, could you share a case study with us that, where you saw someone who was, at a certain point? I love the idea of watching someone transition.
Oh, yeah.
Or a transformation occur.
My favorite part of the job.
Isn't it great
Yes.
to watch that? So talk to us about that, please.
Sure. I worked with someone who, Fortune 500 company, in line for a C-level position. And the board at one point said, look, we know you're the most technically qualified for the job. It wasn't open yet, but we knew somewhere down the line in the succession planning that he would be the next in line. And they said, we know you're the most technically qualified, but frankly, when you talk, we don't understand you. So fix it, or we'll find somebody else.
Wow.
I mean, solid ultimatum.
Yeah.
And so my job was to come in there and figure out what he was doing that was making the board just glaze over when he talked and really not be able to close that deal with
Yeah.
them. And so there were a number of factors we identified. One was that he was stuck in what I call the expert's curse. He knew too much. He was so knowledgeable about every detail of the numbers that he got bogged down in the weeds too much. And while the board, they did their homework, they were knowledgeable coming into a meeting, it was still overwhelming, and there was no story to it. You have to take those numbers out and help me understand, how should I feel about these numbers? So if you tell me, well, let's see, we exceeded revenue goals by about 50% last year, and we did, like, I'm kind of confused because I'm hearing something, you don't seem really excited, I'm flipping through, I'm going, okay, generic. No, wait a minute. You just said we exceeded revenue goals by 50%. Register that someplace.
Yes, exactly.
Help me know
Yeah.
what to feel, because the audience is going to take their cues from you on how to interpret and how to feel about what you're saying before they even hear the words. So that was one big thing. We had to take it down a notch insofar as the technical details, tell the story around it, make it relatable, and then deliver it in a way that was going to get through. Then there were other things along, like, everybody talks too fast. Hey, I'm a Jersey Italian. We're genetically programmed to speak at twice the speed of light when we get going.
Right.
So it's constantly a battle to speak at a more intelligible pace.
Yeah.
But for him and many of the other executives I work with, it's just about like motoring through the content. No, it's not. It's about closing the deal. And to do that, you have to command the room. You have to connect with the audience. They have to process what you're saying.
Absolutely.
You have to pause, take a breath.
Yeah.
So many of those little details transformed his presentations into something where they glazed over for the better part of 45 minutes to this.
Wow. Wow.
And that within 6 months.
It's so important to tell stories and really understand
Yes.
exactly what it is you're trying to do and how you're trying to connect with the audience. The book is called Maximize Your Leadership Influence by Dr. Laura Sicola. Command the room, connect with your audience, and close the deal. You've had to have inspiration in your life, right?
Many.
Many, right?
Yes.
And where do you get that inspiration from?
I think there's always been a fascination with just needing to be understood. And I think it's a very, very human basic need. People where do most arguments come from? The feeling that you don't understand me. I just want you to understand. Even if you don't agree, I just need you to understand. And when we start to look at what causes that lack of understanding, there's so much to it. And that's really where all of this comes from.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's been a wonderful 30 minutes.
Thank
It's
you.
flown by.
It has.
And it's been very fascinating. Thank you so much to the show.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
You're welcome. Could you tell the audience how to get in touch with you?
Absolutely.
Please.
Join me at my website, www.vocalimpactproductions.com.
Wonderful. Dr. Laura Sicola, thanks so much for being here on Rainmakers Roundup. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week at 10:30 on Rainmakers Roundup. Have a wonderful and safe week, everyone.